So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking today about freedom. What is freedom? What's freedom? What would you say?
To walk away.
Freedom to walk away from a bloke asking you what is freedom. Indeed. What is freedom? Awareness. Freedom is awareness. What is freedom, madam? Flowers. Everyone seems to have a different idea. What is freedom, you guys? So what is freedom? We were talking about freedom. What is freedom? Would you like to borrow the megaphone?
I'm fine.
I know you're fine. You are fine.
You can pick me up on the video.
Is that okay, yeah?
As long as you talk close to him.
As long as I talk close to you.
Okay, let's chat.
Freedom is oxymoronic.
Why?
Because to a sense, freedom is a scapegoat to just help us conform. If you're given the ideology that you're free, then you have less worry about being bound. So when you really think about it, how free am I? I can't go to 10 Downing now and be like, get out, I want to put someone of my choice in there. There isn't freedom. There's a democracy. Democracy isn't freedom.
No.
Democracy is, it goes by vote, it goes by majority, it goes by what
No,
we
it doesn't go by
perceive to
majority.
be the best decision.
It doesn't go by majority. It goes by minority.
Freedom is synonymous with normality. They go hand in hand. What's normal? How do you define what's normal? A wise woman once said, normal is an illusion. What's normal to the spider is chaos to the fly. Do you know who quoted that? Morticia Adams, from the Addams Family. The most likely advice from the most unlikely source. So freedom is me. I've just gone to try and get my security license sorted out so that I can get some money to be able to express my freedom, because I am a musician. I consider myself to be an ultra entrepreneur. But in order for me to explore my entrepreneurship, I have to go through degrees of conformity. I need to be able to be interviewed and successfully get the job, and then work my shift, get my P45 at the end of the month, which then goes towards buying a MacBook Pro and the software needed to produce my music and the visuals for it and whatever else, and then I get to express the ideology of freedom. But what's freedom? See, he said the freedom to walk away in itself is freedom. No, that's prerogative. It's not freedom. It's prerogative. But you see, people get prerogative and freedom mixed up. And that's where we are now. So even in you asking what's freedom and saying, you know, we're all zombies, maybe there's a demographic of people who believe everyone else is a zombie. I check, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing, the same way, the same time,
Yeah.
over and over
Expecting
again.
different results.
So when you're doing this,
Yeah.
that's why I asked you.
Oh, okay.
Do you consider yourself to be sane
Okay.
or insane in hoping to reach out to people who don't want to be reached out to, who just want to get to their shift on time? I have a date. I've got a dinner somewhere. I've got a lunch to get to. I want a frappuccino. So, in you saying, please wake the fuck up and understand that you are being controlled. Everything you see is systematically put there and configured to be able to keep you within a box.
Interesting.
Keep reiterating this point
Yeah.
over and over again.
But that is what is really going on. So there is such a thing as objective truth. Like the universe is a vibration, right? It's all a vibration. No.
Starting up the engine.
We're all of our. There's like my reality, yeah, and we each are in our own bubble of reality, right? And that is undeniably true. The case, yeah.
Hold on one second. Let me just
It's like
get the
all
microphone.
perceiving our own bubble of reality, yeah? It's like a story. I have a narrative and I'm describing what I'm perceiving, yeah? So like, that is real. We each have an individual reality. But then like, what we're each seeing is a different version of what we infer to be there, yeah? So we're abstracting energy fields. Like, say if I like hold up my phone, we're all seeing a different phone, yeah? We're all perceiving a different phone, but we infer the phone also exists. It has its own existence, independent of our perception. And that's the world that science describes, of molecules and atoms. In this case, transistors plastic, metal, glass. You know, there's all these materials, and and all of that is vibrating too. Yeah. So like we're vibration, this phone is vibration, and there's definitely a difference between our perception of something and the actual thing that we're perceiving, right? So like that, and when those two are matched up, then we say we're like perceiving with clarity, and when they're misaligned, then we're hallucinating. And to me, what's happening in the world, and especially London and this kind of left brain Western culture, is that there's like, what is really going on is what it says on the t-shirt, right? And it seems as though the story and the perception is out of sync with the actual vibrational reality. And I would say yes, people are being controlled. Like, being controlled in many different ways, and like they don't want to like look at that. And but there's so many different perspectives, so it is hard to know what is really going on. You know, is there one version of what is really going on? And that is almost, to me, it's like a philosophical thing. But I'd say like it's sanity to believe that there is something we can all collectively tune into, which probably is just like the vibration. So like maybe there's like many worlds, many universes, or maybe there's just one. But if there's just one, that simplifies it. So if we just tune into that, so we're like searching for the truth. So we had to like work on our own nervous system and our own like biases and our own beliefs. We have to get beyond our own belief system to actually tune into what's there and be aware that we're always perceiving our own, we're in our own perspective, which is based on our beliefs. And then we can get attached to those beliefs. And by like playing with different beliefs and looking at reality through different lenses, I think we can start to see more of what's going on more clearly. And my feeling is that like the news and the mainstream media is really almost 90%, maybe more, propaganda, which is actually been it's not that everyone in the mainstream media is part of some conspiracy intentionally and they're all evil or anything like that. It's just that maybe people in powerful positions are not resonating with love, and those people, some of them are intentionally putting negativity, and they're part of a a cult or a system which is very dark, and like I think that those people deserve forgiveness, and I don't think they should be punished. But it's time that the people in the power structure, and that includes the media, the education system, the political system, all of the systems, everyone in positions of power needs to look around them and ask if the people like in their field are like working for the greater good, or they have an agenda which is really like subversive and kind of, oh god, there's just so much like I don't know. I feel like where do you start? What's really going on? It's not what people are commonly. It's there's a narrative. There's a mainstream, narrative, and it's not that. It's like that is a programmed. It's being programmed, and the programmers don't even know they're programming. And it's probably a small, tiny percentage in the power structure that is, knows what's really, really going on, or a deeper level of what's happening, maybe. But I think that there is. I think it's that's very abstract, but to get concrete, get more practical, down to earth, it's like there is evidence that there are alternative energy technologies, like they call them 0-point energy technologies, and they're based on different principles of physics, like that involve quantum theory. And we need a unified field theory, quantum theory, to understand this form of energy which relates to the vacuum. How can we just create energy without like connecting it to something like physical that moves or explodes? Well, we can harness the vacuum energy, right? So there are physicists who've been talking about this like over and over, and it's been reinvented, and it was discovered initially, I think,
was it?
Tesla about 100 years ago, and since then it's been consistently, ruthlessly suppressed. And the evidence for that is much, much clearer than the evidence for free energy itself. If you look into the suppression of it, that will actually reveal, it's all about, but I would say even beyond money, it's about geopolitical power. And then this connects to the UFO phenomenon, which connects to black budget projects and special access programs, where trillions of pounds are going missing, going into like a black hole, and being used to like fund all these exotic technologies that not just include free energy but electrogravitic propulsion. And these things could solve all of our global issues, like on a physical level, but when you look a bit deeper, actually it starts to look as though the issue isn't a lack of technology, a lack of knowledge, it's actually a lack of love. And really what we need is a new perception of self that doesn't separate people, so that we can get beyond this false perception of being separate and realize that we are the universe, we are one. And it's that Christ consciousness, that perception of self, that I think will ultimately lead us to freedom globally.
Please don't say the C word on my channel. People switch off me the minute they hear that.
Yeah, okay, so I... Yeah.
He said the C word.
He used it within sentiment. He used it within sentiment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
really, okay, what I mean, I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm not talking about Jesus, and I'm not talking about Christianity. I'm talking about unconditional love and forgiveness. Unconditional love is different to, like, I love you, and then the next minute I hate you, and I'm gonna like get attached and then reject you. That's not unconditional love. Unconditional love is a different vibration. It's a different frequency. It's loving kindness. It's just love for no reason. Just love, and you love everything. You love the shadow. You love the light. That's unconditional love, and with that it comes compassion and forgiveness. And there's also light, and light is information. Light illuminates, and love heals and unites. And we need those two frequencies. We don't need to associate it with religion. Like, anyone can embrace that, and that is what will ultimately transform the global collective consciousness, is the frequency of love, because that is our essence. That is the most powerful force. And I think it transcends the globe. It's actually a universal energy, and we can understand love scientifically, but we're miles away from that. And right now, I think, or maybe not, I don't know, but in order to get those free energy technologies, we need to take our power back, and the powers that be need to let go. So there's like a sharing of power that needs to happen, because the money system is just a reflection of this control energy. Everything is control. It's like we could all have these free energy devices plugged into our houses, right? But then when energy is decentralized, everything's decentralized. Transport's decentralized, food production's decentralized. Well, we'll just build 3D printers and manufacture everything ourselves, right? We'll grow our own food. So there, in that world, power is shared. There is not a ruling elite controlling 99% of humanity.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're probably missing the point. David Cameron is I regard him as a junkie. Yeah, and I reckon he's an adrenaline junkie. Can you imagine what would he do all day if he wasn't like playing this?
You're not a junkie?
Me? Yeah, I'm
You're
a
not
junkie.
For attention. And this guy seems to like talking about his stuff. He's probably a junkie for having a.
Are you a junkie?
I'm a junkie for truth.
Junkie for truth.
philosopher, I just heard something I considered to be absurdity and stopped.
Oh, right.
And looked into it, prepared my counterattacks.
What's your response to this?
My response, okay, so the biggest problem is hierarchy and profit. I repeat, the biggest problem is hierarchy and profit. Even in a sense where he said, was it Christ knowledge? What did you say?
Christ consciousness.
Christ consciousness. You see, you perceived it to be esoteric because your whole life you've been taught to believe the word Christ is something attributed to esoterics. Now, I've grown up in church, superimposed on me, but I've broken away from it. Now, from what I've been taught, the word Christ means anointed king. So, in a sense, if you're anointed, you're awake. And that's all it is. Christ was a messenger. Islam believes he was a prophet, he was a messenger. Christians believe he's the son that's going to come back from the clouds, he's going to rapture people up, and you know there's going to be death and war and hell. But the
I think Jews believe he's just a really naughty boy.
Yeah. So the biggest problem is hierarchy and profit. So the reason why people won't have all of those devices in their houses is for three simple reasons. I watched the documentary Zeitgeist, and what Peter Joseph was talking about is three things. ESP, efficiency, sustainability, and preservation. If something's too efficient, it's too sufficient, and it preserves too well, it's an enemy to profit. No one makes money. That thing you're holding right now, it's predestined to fuck up eventually. Why? Because the company that distributed it to you, if they give it to you and it works too well, if you can still use it when you're 76, they've lost out on some money. So what they do is program it. All right, maybe after 2.5 years, it's gonna, and you have to buy a new one.
Exactly.
And it continues and it continues and it continues. At the end of the day, money doesn't exist. Apparently, 97% of all money is now number form. It's all numerical. And only 3% actually exists as tangible money that you can hold in your hands. So at the end of the day, people aren't going to wake up.
That say,
I
promise to pay the bearer. So that's
pay
not
the
even
bearer.
real money.
That's just a promissory note, isn't it?
It's debt. A lot of it's debt.
It's profit. It's profit. So right now, profit is overruling profits. P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S. So at the end of the day, the four of us might be awake, but when you then look into what's considered as sleeping, it just confuses everything even more. Because the people behind me, they might be like, oh, I'm awake, you know, I'm listening, I'm clued up, I'm not religious. So
Do you think you're awake?
awake and asleep is subjective.
Maybe it's not binary. Maybe there are levels or degrees of wakefulness, and it's, you know, infinite maybe.
And there you
And that's
go.
quite humbling if it is infinite, because
And
it's like
even
no
in
matter how much we
introducing-
expand our consciousness, there will always be more. There is always
Always
more.
be more.
Like, yeah.
We are little teeny weeny
Yeah.
pieces of carbon. You are okay. So with a documentary one of my apprentices gave me, by the way, I have 14 apprentices all learning under me. It's beautiful, but
What are they learning?
they're learning entrepreneurship. So, you know, I'm a piano player, I'm a creative writer, I'm a voice actor, rapper, singer, piano. It goes on. It goes on. It goes
What's
on.
your what are you
My
on
main
social
weapon,
media?
my main weapon right now is piano playing.
Right, and are you on social media with that?
I am.
What, is this for our film? What's it under?
You could do it Facebook, Mitchell Piano. I'll come up as Urahara Mitchell Piano.
What?
Urahara Mitchell Piano.
Spell it.
Japanese.
Umbrella Romeo Alpha. Hotel Alpha Romeo Alpha Mitchell Piano.
Is that Japanese?
Hold on a
It
second.
is.
I'm a bit concerned that you're a little bit too familiar with the what those words are. You know those words, sort of thing that the police are trained to know.
Oh my God.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
not
I'm
undercover, are you?
policeman.
You're not
You remember-
undercover.
You remember that
MI5.
You remember that I disclosed before that I am trying to get into the security industry to pay for my considered freedom. That's why I needed to learn the phonetic alphabet in order for me to be competent enough and desirable enough to be hired, to then get paid, to then express my freedom. Hence why I use the phonetic alphabet.
So you're not a policeman?
I'm not a policeman.
But maybe we can
Yet.
learn something from the police and the military, and that is organisation. And maybe, like, do you know Barbara Marx Hubbard? Have you heard of her?
I have, yeah.
She was saying we needed a global peace room, like a war room. It's just as organised as a war room, but for peace. And we're tracking like the solutions all around the earth.
A war room
Maybe
for
the
peace.
challenges.
No, a peace room.
A global peace room. But I think what she was getting at.
Organisation, I mean,
what
from
she-
organisation
yeah.
you get hierarchy.
Not
don't you?
necessarily.
And then you
no,
get, you
because
get,
there's
you get rules and you get
self-organisation.
laws. and
Maybe
you
the
get-
better euphemism would be synergy.
Ah, that synergy. I love that
God
word.
bless euphemism.
So there are organisational structures that are alternatives to hierarchy.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
the 12
holarchy.
Step,
Yeah,
the 12-step program is a good example of. I would call the 12-step program. I like to call it, and this is just completely my own interpretation,
Yeah.
divine democracy,
Divine democracy.
where basically
What's 12-step program?
12-step programs are all
Rehab.
Alcoholics Anonymous and all the
okay.
programs for,
I
for addiction.
Rehabilitation.
Not familiar.
It's for addiction. It's basically
Okay.
addiction
Yeah.
to anything, really,
Uh-huh.
or any compulsion. Compulsive.
Addiction to anything.
Or compulsive or addictive behaviour is what they are kind of peddle themselves for. Which means basically not being able to do something that you want, or not being able to stop doing something that you want to stop doing.
Okay, see that for me comes across as advocacy. I'm gonna explain why. Dr. Gabor Mate, Gabor G-A-B-O-R-M-A-T-E, Gabor Mate, he in
Is
his
he the
studies,
expert on addiction? I think I may have.
he studied
It's
it,
on YouTube, isn't
and he said that the substance itself isn't addictive.
Yeah.
It's the susceptibility of the individual.
And the environment as well. They found the environment makes a big difference too.
I never said any substance was addictive. I said that the program, what I meant was that the program is for people who find themselves unable to stop doing something, right?
Addiction.
Or unable to start doing something. That's it. You can call that whatever you
I
like.
think people are self-medicating.
Yeah?
I think people are self-medicating because the civilization we've created, this environment, is out of sync with our biology, and we feel dead, we feel numb, we feel tired, and I think most people just want to feel alive. And it's like sugar for me. That sugar is in everything. If you look into sugar, it affects beta endorphins, blood sugar levels, serotonin. It acidifies the body. Like if you that scientific, the research on sugar, I think has only been around for a decade or two. It hasn't been around that long, but it's in everything, and it's addictive, and it's not perceived as a drug. Alcohol is typically not even perceived as a drug, and yet there are other chemicals and substances that are called drugs that have been tabooed and made illegal that actually have incredible healing effects on the body, mind, spirit, such as psilocybin, such as, and even LSD, acid was used in a medicinal context before it got
and ecstasy
completely
as well.
taken.
Ecstasy was used in relationship.
MDMA, it's MDMA and ecstasy that typically is associated with healing, and it's like, research these things. We need to. I think it's important to talk about things that are taboo that could really help us.
I agree with you, although you're going off the subject.
I know,
we were talking about organisations, and I'm saying that.
Organisations.
I'm saying that the 12-step program works in such a way where basically there are no leaders. There are no rulers.
Is it self-leadership? Everyone leads themselves.
Kind of.
Bid farewell.
It's been good talking to you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Facebook, Mitchell Piano, you'll find me.
Okay, brilliant.
Mitchell Piano.
Mitchell.
You'll see me.
Okay.
Same haircut.
Okay.
You'll find me.
Take care,
We're just going to finish off about organisation. So I mean, the question about organisation, yes, there are different ways of organising, and I guess what I suppose what I find myself doing is waiting for people to organise so I can join.
Self-organise.
So that I can join.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to know how to do it. And how to actually get people on board.
I think that it has to be. I think that the way we can create organisation that is self-organised, we need a new form.
Fuck around the pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Yay! We have different. So there's structure. The essence of organisation is structure. And right now the structures we see are hierarchical, and that organisation. So most people can't think of an alternative, and they just say, if it's not that, it's anarchy, and they associate anarchy with some form of negative chaos where it's just a mess or something. But nature clearly displays a high level of order, which is deterministic chaos from a systems theory perspective, and it's self-organisation, and we have a whole science of this now. There are you can go to a university and study this, So it's entering the mainstream scientific consciousness, and through the science of systems, we can see that there are alternatives to hierarchy. We can have self-organisation, and I think that is associated with a new form of leadership, which is self-leadership, and that is associated with another phenomenon that is called syntony. Syntony is the alignment with the patterns of creation experienced as inner motivation, intuition, and basically feelings. So in order to tune in to this new form of leadership, which is self-leadership, we have to tune in each individually and collectively to our intuition, our feelings, and our inner sort of motivation, so we can be driven from within instead of from without. So instead of someone telling us what to do, we each tune in to something that's already inside us and follow that. And the education system and the media is constantly taking our attention outwards and into the left hemisphere of the brain, disconnecting us from our body quite a lot. We're in our heads, So when we tune more into the body, we have some feelings and some intuitions about what we want to do with our lives, and we look at the world and we just have empathy for other human beings and just feel in our hearts we want to maybe contribute something of value. But the challenge is that the system the system itself, the dominant socioeconomic system and the dominant consciousness is not compatible with that. So it's constantly pulling us away from our feelings, away from our heart, and it's like a gravity, and we have to like, I think what we need now is we need to connect, like we're connecting now, we're vibrating on a different frequency and we're questioning things and we're thinking about how else we can structure society and community and our minds and everything. Everything is going to change when we all connect and start to figure this out. But for that we need time, we need space, we need energy, we need resources, right? And so far this new consciousness hasn't really landed yet. It's there and it's happening, and change is happening within many of us, within millions of people. There's a whole new culture emerging that's been called cultural creatives. Have you heard of cultural creatives? So I think there was like 150 million they estimated in Europe or something, but I can't remember the statistics right now. But if you Google cultural creatives or on Wikipedia, that in itself is quite interesting, and that's just one new emerging global culture, but there's others as well, and some are more esoteric, some are more spiritual, some are more like environmentally focused, some are more, and there's also a YouTube video worth watching, a short one called Blessed Unrest, and this guy is talking about I can't remember his name right now. He's talking about this global movement which is social justice, environmental, and it's hundreds of thousands of organizations, and it doesn't have a name. And really what it is, it's the planet healing itself, yeah? It's the light force, you know, the love energy expressed in humans and organizations, but it's not yet connected. It needs to be more connected, it needs to see itself, and we need to like be more organized and be more aware. And I think
so how can someone get in touch with you, for example? You seem to want this.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you?
So, well, I have a website, and that's chrislarcombe.com, which is my name. Yeah, Chris, and then Larcombe is LARCOMBE, and the other website I have is larky.org, LARKY.org, and I'm working on a social media technology called Noomap, which is based on fractal geometry and a new understanding of consciousness. And this is a new form of media and a social network technology, and it will help us connect in a different way, and it will help us map our consciousness collectively so we can collectively perceive more and kind of augment each other's perception by sharing our perceptions. And I'm interested in using it to map specific frequencies that I think will help facilitate the shift, and that includes the challenges, like the problems we have everywhere on the planet, the solutions to those problems based on our current understanding. Also, I think it's important to map our visions, because I think that it's through our visions that we can actually create a new Earth, and the visions are like the blueprints for the new Earth. And it's like Barbara Marx Hubbard has an amazing metaphor that I really appreciate, which is that, you know, when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, there are these imaginal cells that hold the DNA of the butterfly, and at first there are few of them, and the immune system of the caterpillar actually kills them. So that's analogous to like Martin Luther King and, you know, Gandhi and John Lennon. These individuals, they somehow broke through into this other space of being, state of being, and they had a vision of like a vision that was driving them forwards, and they created change, and then they got killed because maybe like it was too much of a threat to the system, too much of a threat to the status quo and the current way of being. And just like that in a caterpillar, at first the immune system kills off some of the imaginal cells, but eventually they multiply so much and start connecting to each other, and then they transform the whole caterpillar into a butterfly. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen on a global level, and people in the caterpillar reality aren't seeing it coming, but the imaginal cells have the blueprint in their field, in their aura, in their DNA, whatever it is, it's inside us, in our consciousness. So when we map all of our visions individually and we put them together, we will have a kind of like collective blueprint for the new Earth. And it's like it's really clear to see that the solutions to our problems are there. We have permaculture, we have these free energy technologies. Even without that, we have like wind and solar and hydroelectric, like there's there's just so many, right? There's so many, and I just think, you know, we could have more sovereignty in our communities. Our communities could be way more self-organizing if we just connected with our neighbors. The education system, and like we don't really, I don't think we need top-down media when we have peer-to-peer media through the internet. It's really obsolete. And why do people seem to think that it's even relevant to tune into the news? And why is it the news and not just a news when there's so much else going on? Do you know what I mean? There's so much else going on, and I think if in order to really create change, we need to focus 80% of our attention on the solutions and only 20% on the problems. And protesting and complaining, like, which is happening a lot, is a sign that people aren't happy with what's happening. And like Occupy, that was a global movement, a global protest, and a lot of people didn't even realize it was global, and that's significant in itself. We are becoming earthlings. We're not just in London right now, we're in the earth, and the earth is a whole system. And I think the new consciousness embraces that, and a perception of self as being part of and also the whole. We're part of the earth and we are the earth. Like, I am the earth speaking to the earth, and I am the universe speaking to the universe. And that perception of self is different to me just being a physical person, separate, walking around this tiny little dot in a big space. That's just the perception, right? And this is the thing, what's really going on. There are many truths, and we're all in our own bubble of reality, and when we change our beliefs, the experience changes. So I think, I don't know, for me, I've been through a transformation, and my understanding of truth has changed. I dropped out of, I was in academia for 6 years, and I dropped out to find out what the hell was going on, right? What's really going on? I wanted to know what's really going on, because it felt like something very different to what I was taught was going on. And that's indeed what I have found. And it's
Sorry, can I just
confirmed.
this silly little nosy part of myself just want to know what were you doing? What part of academia were you in?
Well, I started off in computer science, and I did a BSc in computer science, and I did well in that. I got a first. I actually had the highest mark, out of the others, out of everyone in the course. And like, I'm not saying that to be arrogant. I'm saying that to just reassure you that I actually
Right.
was working hard, and
Yeah.
I was in that system. Yeah, I was dedicated to that, and I worked hard to get that result, because to me it mattered a lot. Yeah, and I love computers as well, and I'm passionate about AI, so it was always been my hobby as well. But after that, I did a master's degree in evolutionary and adaptive systems, which really changed my perception of things, because it's like you can start to see things from a more non-linear perspective, and systems theory is really interesting because it's interdisciplinary. So it's like starts to connect different disciplines and different perspectives. It's integrative and holistic, and I find that quite illuminating, and it really, I really find it interesting. But at that point, I was still very much in a conditioned mainstream perspective still. I mean, I thought the world was a bit mad, but I didn't realise that everything I'd been taught was pretty much a lie and completely inaccurate. So then after that, I went to do a PhD, and I did well in my masters, and I signed on to a project at Plymouth University, and it was a project called iTalk International. Sorry, I need to eat something.
Okay.
But no, I started a PhD, and it was integration and transfer of action language knowledge in humanoid robots. So I was working with a humanoid robot.
I know a lot about that.
Called the iCub. Really?
No.
Yeah. So I did 2 years of that, and I went through a phase of being a psychonaut as well, and experimented on my own consciousness subjectively with different psychedelics, and that was important. That was an important part of my journey. And that was like studying consciousness from the inside out instead of the outside in, sort of thing. And studying it subjectively in as well as objectively. And
Sorry, to spot it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on you at the moment?
no, only my heart. Alan Watts said,
Mushrooms, maybe?
Alan Watts said, when you get the message, hang up the phone, and I got the message. So I feel like, you know, that phase of my life was super important, and I think they're very powerful tools for learning. And they're teacher plants. The Earth is literally growing things to help us evolve our consciousness, and you know, they've been used for thousands of years, and it's pretty crazy that our society, you know, makes them illegal, especially when they've been used in, you know, spiritual contexts. And there's a TED talk that got banned that came out recently, which really just synopsizes it pretty much perfectly, and that was Graham Hancock, The War on Consciousness. That's worth watching.
Okay.
But basically, yeah, that's another.
I'm sure they
whole
ban
thing.
it on purpose so that more people watch it.
Well, it's those states of consciousness.
I'm thinking maybe I should like stage a TED talk. Yeah. And then ban TED talk. I just put up the thing. What would they do? What would they do if I like did a fake TED talk and I put all the same? They'd probably sue me or something.
I think just try it.
If I got enough hits.
Only if you got hits. Only if it was popular.
I think the fact it was banned probably did draw more attention to it.
Yeah.
So basically, I had I suppose I had quite a lot of free time during my PhD, and I was exploring my consciousness and reading all this stuff online. I watched the Zeitgeist films. I think I saw you on YouTube as well, and I was inspired and shocked, and I ended up dropping out, and I felt like I had to take my mind back, and I had to decouple myself from any system that I didn't resonate with. So it was a struggle for me to really live for the last 4 years, because I didn't want to work, I didn't want to get a job, I wanted to create my own thing that I felt was a appropriate response to the whole as I perceived it, just through my own lens of perception. So I've been working on this technology, which I think is a game-changing technology.
Have you got funding for it?
We've had support from an organisation called Uplift, and it was to some extent an exchange. We're building them a Noomap hub. It's called Noomap, and they were supporting us and supporting us with, you know, like food, shelter. So we wanted to transcend the business energy and for it to be in a more like a kind of gift economy in energy. So and we are almost there, but we've learned so much through our interaction with Uplift, and basically we're about to ground a new operating system, which is, we're calling it like syntocracy. So it's like syntonic holocracy, which it's like an operating system. So as well as the technology being novel, the way we're delivering it and bringing it into the world is also very novel. And really, like when I started on this, I was looking at the socio-economic system and listening to the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist thing, and it was like, okay, we need a resource-based economy or something to get us outside of the monetary system, because that seems to be limiting us in so many ways. Like, their solutions are there, and there are all these global systemic problems, but we can't seem to solve them because we're like locked into this system, and there's like a limited amount of things we can do in each moment because of like the mental programming and the beliefs and the money and the physical resources. And it's like, how the hell do we change that? So I thought that, okay, so there's this resource-based economy, right? That looks like a viable alternative that would work, but how the heck do we implement that? So I started working on something called Serbi, which was scalable resource-based economy, and I thought that if we combined like free cycle, sofa surfing, and all these different like kind of peer-to-peer consumption systems, if we combined them into a meta system with some kind of highly general ontology like resource, skill, access condition, resource, skill, access condition, that language, I think, is sufficiently general to encapsulate all those alternatives into like one meta system, which I think would provide a kind of viable alternative to the centralized monolithic, monetary system. So it's like monoculture is the monetary system, and a diverse ecosystem, like I don't know, polyculture, I don't know what the alternative to monoculture would be, many cultures. It's like, instead of having one system, one game, and mistaking that for life itself rather than just a game, we can have many games, many systems that all interconnect in synergy with each other and transcend into that. So like, creating a parallel socioeconomic system that obsoletes the current dominant entropic socioeconomic system, which is not really an economic system at all. It's a kind of because it's entropic and it doesn't economize.
What does entropic mean?
Entropic is like the so there's one of these polarity. Everything is polarity: hot, cold, light, dark. One of the polarities that is really like big is entropy, syntropy. So this is like towards sort of decay and death, and towards higher complexity, more life, more consciousness. So it's like decay and death, and down to like nothing is like entropy, and syntropy is like towards life. It's like the life force energy almost. And typically it comes from, it's used in physics, entropy. The word entropy is used in physics, and typically like life, biological life, is considered to be like negentropic or syntropic, so it resists entropy. So I think that what we can do is, by raising the frequency and vibration in ourselves, we can start to create systems and infrastructure outside of us that reflects that, and that will be syntropic. So becoming more like aligned with our higher self, with the light, with love, we become more syntropic in ourselves, and that will lead to us creating syntropic structures in the world. So that will be sustainable stuff, infinite energy, like that doesn't run out. Like, and it's, a lot of physicists will say that's not possible, but it is possible. And it's like we have to look at the consciousness that the scientists are in as well. And people seem to think that scientific truths are the truth, and they're not. They're just theories. And so look at like the way paradigm shifts have occurred in science over decades and decades, and the story always changes, and what we think is possible always changes, and what we manifest physically as a result of our worldview always changes. People could not have anticipated planes and cars 100 years ago when they were using horses and carts. They can't even imagine that. And step by step by step, our understanding of things changes, and I think that the next one will enable us to be sustainable and live in harmony. And I think that it's the age of intelligence, or the age of consciousness. We've had the industrial age, the kind of information age, the computer age, and each one builds on the next. It's like, okay, with what can we do with all this technology? Well, when we understand information, then we can like create computers, yeah? And then it's like, but maybe if we understand intelligence or love or like systems or something, we can do something more intelligent with computers. It's like, or we can do something more intelligent with technology. Like, we've become clever, but not
clever,
wise.
stupid.
But not wise, yeah. It's like intelligence isn't wisdom. Like the powers that be, the Illuminati, or like, the I don't know, like the people in power, it seems very clever. It all seems very, there's a lot of intelligence and cleverness and knowledge. But what about wisdom? What about like creating something that works for everyone? And what about our feelings? What about the feminine energy? What about the goddess? What about like bliss? Like what about? And I think really these are all frequencies and archetypes, and it's all energy, different vibrations of energy that are based on different sacred geometric structures. So like that's the way I'm looking at it now. That's just my view. I'm not saying it is that, but it is to me. So like there's something something called gene keys. Check out gene keys. That will blow your mind.
I've seen gene
Yeah. So you said, what is freedom? Freedom is a frequency. Right, it's an expression of our DNA. Yeah.
What is freedom? Freedom is a frequency down to our DNA, and I'm here reporting from Camden Lock Bridge with
Chris Larkham.
Completely randomly, although nothing is random. And that's all for now. See you on the next episode of What's Really Going On.